This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Peter Clausi, the VP of Capital Markets and a Director of Silver Bullet Mines, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And the company is listed on the TSXV with the ticker SBMI and the OTC market with the ticker SBMCF. So, hello, welcome onto Stockbox. It's the first time we're talking. How are you doing?
Very well, and thank you for the invitation. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, and it's good to be talking to you so we can learn a little bit about the company and the projects and really what you're all about. So maybe just you could introduce the company to begin with, give us a little bit of the history and really the high-level elevator pitch, if you like, of the company.
Sure. This is an interesting story to tell because a lot of what you're going to ask me, my answer is going to be, I don't know. And the company doesn't know. We started out as a silver company. We rehabilitated a mine in Arizona. We built a mill about 7 miles away in Arizona. We commissioned the mill as of June 2022. That means the mill was in production. We're producing silver off the shaker table. So far, it's an unremarkable story. But if you read our press releases from September of 2022 and early October 2022, you'll see that we found platinum, palladium, rhodium, and osmium in our silver. That is remarkable. That's unusual. We can't find anything else like it anywhere in the world. So here we are with a fully functional mill. We've been in production. Now we have the rather enviable task of figuring out what to do with the platinum, palladium, rhodium, osmium, and other minor elements. Now, for our math, I'm not counting the rhodium or the osmium because they're just not worth it that much and we don't have sufficient quantities. But we do appear to have a fair amount of platinum and palladium, one of which is trading around $1,700 an ounce, the other around $1,100 an ounce. When you add that to our silver at $23 an ounce and the gold at $1,700, close to $1,800 an ounce, that's an interesting proposition and one that I've never seen before.
Okay, well, before we started recording, you told me this was a unique story. You've been doing this 30 years, and it's going to surprise everyone. I mean, you've said there about so this was a silver mine, the Arizona, and you got the mill that was commissioned, but you actually think you found PGMs. Why is it so unusual, do you think, to have got to this point to find PGMs?
There is one producing palladium mine in all of the United States. It's at Stillwater up in Montana. So the fact that there might be economic values of palladium is of itself fascinating and certainly interesting to the defense industry to aid in the critical supply of such a mineral to the United States and to Canada. Right? Canada, United States, the UK, Australia, New Zealand are all considered domestic sources because we're all friends. So it would mean an incredible amount of difference to the United States to be able to have a supply of palladium other than Stillwater and not having to rely upon foreign actors like Russia, like China, like other companies that the United States may not be on the best terms with.
Sure. We do read a lot about homegrown, the United States wanting homegrown commodities and sources. Security of supply is going to be more important than less important going into the future, given the political climate. But you said here then about the silver situation. Does this throw a bit of a spanner in the works for this project? What are you currently doing? What are you currently trying to figure out here? Is it a shift from silver to PGMs, or are you in the figuring out stage still?
We're in the figuring out stage. No doubt there's going to be another box that we're going to have to attach to our existing box. And I don't know what that is yet. I'm waiting for the really smart guys to tell me because I'm just a lawyer. What do I know? Right? The really smart guys are going to tell me what this box is going to be and how it's going to work. Best practices said that when you get something really unusual, you send it out to be refereed. Carl Sagan said, unusual claims require unusual proof. So we took those samples with the palladium, the platinum, as we found them, and sent them to 2 independent labs to do check assays. What we're doing currently is waiting for those check assays to come back. Right? There's always the possibility the lab we used was contaminated, ran bad practices, something. And although we don't think that's the case, best practices say do check assays.
Okay, so this should confirm then the presence or not of platinum group metals.
Right. And there's 2 different processes at the different labs. One is being run to prove a negative, and then the other one is being run to prove a positive. So we're trying to rule out all the possibilities, and I don't know what the answer to that's going to be, and I don't know when we're going to have those results in hand.
Okay, but let's say that it does turn out that there are PGMs there. You will have to change the focus of the operation then really to focus on exploiting the PGMs rather than the silver.
I don't know. It depends on the science. I'd love to be able to say yes to that, but I don't know.
Okay. I mean, has there been any historical activity in this particular mine area or neighbours nearby that you can perhaps do some research on and see what sort of materials and commodities they were mining for?
We have anecdotes. We're up in Globe, Arizona, which is like being in Timmins or Sudbury. These are mining towns. So there's a lot of institutional mining knowledge there. Anecdotally, we've been told that there are small platinum palladium mines in the area, almost artisanal. We spoke to one gentleman who says he has a platinum palladium deposit about a half-hour drive south of us. And we have found scientific research putting forward the theory that platinum and palladium can be correlated with copper porphyries. Now, all around us are copper porphyries.
Okay.
So if you go look at, say, Rio Tinto's annual report, for example, it'll list copper, $5 billion of revenue. Then it has a line item for other minerals, $50 million. And it's our suspicion that platinum, palladium, the other PGMs are included in those other minerals line, but not enough to warrant its own line.
Okay. So currently then really the situation on the ground here is that you're waiting for these assay results. It's basically a phase that you're going through that may mean a shift of focus or a shift of tactic and how you're going to proceed with this project. And then you'll look to make plans, I presume, depending on what the assay results come back as.
So while we're waiting, we press released this about 2 weeks ago. While we're waiting, there's an area of the mine called the Buckeye Mine that we're fairly confident hosts higher grade silver. And we're fairly confident on that based on the geologic report that was filed in January of 2021, which looked at the historical records and gave us pretty good guidance. The nice thing about the higher grade silver is historically it was so high grade, it'd be unreasonable to expect to find PGMs there. So it's our expectation that we'll be able to mine that higher grade material, put it through our mill, which is fully functional, just sitting there waiting, and produce saleable product without the PGMs in it. Saleable product means revenue, which means cash flow.
Indeed. Okay, so you do have a path there to revenue, to production, whilst waiting on the assay results for the other part of the mine there. So, I mean, when are you expecting perhaps to be able to get material to run through the mine? What's the current status here with the silver?
As we announced a couple of weeks ago, we are blasting. There's I'm Italian. I got to talk with my hands. There's a part of the Buckeye mine called the treasure room. And there's been incredible historical values pulled out of there. Problem was it collapsed in 1874, and we're not putting people back in the treasure room until it's fully secured. So if the treasure room is here, the adit goes this way and around. And it's the higher grade veins that are in the back that the field team is attacking. We have a 2-boom jumbo that can drill about 50 feet at a time, which means we can blast 50 feet of mineralized material at a time to get to the vein. And that's what the team is doing.
And you have a timeline then in mind to hopefully when you get to the treasure room, as you say?
Around the treasure room, and it's imminent.
Imminent. Okay. Imminent. Okay. And that would, at that point, then you could, in theory, be drawing that ore out and in production, effectively, running it then through the mill.
Right. The regulators don't like us calling it ore because we don't have a 43101. They like us calling it mineralized material.
Okay. And would the plan be to get a 401 or not to get it through the mill?
For this kind of project, a resource estimate would be a waste of time and money.
Okay.
It's a large vein stockwork-based system. And to do a 43-1 on it, you'd have to drill all along the vein, a couple of miles out, do step-out drilling, and even then, such a report would be so limited as to not be worth anything.
Okay.
At a cost of several $1 million.
Indeed. Okay, well, imminent news due on that front then, and hopefully not too long to find about the assay results for the potential PGM prospectivity as well. Now, I know you have 4 projects, but 2 of them really are very early stage, and they're not really the focus. We've talked there about Arizona, but the other project then in Idaho, can you just give us a bit of a high-level overview of this project and where it's at and the current focus of activities?
Sure. The company bought the Idaho Project in December of 2020. It's called the Washington Mine. It's near Boise, up in the mountains. Historically, it produced gold with a little bit of silver. The geologists tell me that the gold and the silver were laid down in 2 different geologic eras, which means that a geologist can go in, look at the rocks and say, that's the gold, that's the silver. And when silver's at 70 cents an ounce, nobody wants silver.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, they blocked it out, which means they mapped it. They identified it, but left the silver in place and chased the gold veins.
Mm-hmm.
According to the historical records, and it's pre-43-101, so all the usual caveats and warnings apply, there's 120,000 tons of silver, of material.
Yeah.
Hosting silver grading between 39 and 90 ounces of silver per ton. For context, common wisdom is that bonanza silver starts at 30 ounces of silver per ton, and we're starting at 39, according to the historical records.
Yeah, that is a significant grade. I mean, yeah, you're right. Bonanza is about 30 grams per ton, but 39 to 90, you said, grams per ton. That is pretty significant. I mean, does that suggest it's perhaps more nuggety and less easy to follow, or what's your reading on this?
I don't have one. Sorry.
Okay, but there's some work. What is the work going on at the moment to understand it a bit more? To take this historical data and put it into more of a modern context and see if it's exploitable.
Great question. We had announced that we were going to go in and take a bulk sample of between 1,500 and 3,000 tons. Have a contract miner pull that for us, put it into a truck, drive it down the highway to a mill, custom mill it, get a check, and do it again. And again and again and again until we've exhausted the 120,000 tons, or something else has come up that causes us to change our thinking. What's currently the problem is Idaho has received 160% of its annual snowfall, and it's only January.
Okay.
So we can get to the mine. There's nowhere left to put the snow, though. But you have your snow plow. There's nowhere left to plow the snow to.
Okay, so it's a matter of waiting until the summer starts to go, the spring starts to come along, and the snow starts to thaw, and you can get in there properly. So, is it fair to say that going to the spring summer, there's going to be a fair amount of activity going on at this project?
That'd be true.
Okay. And just looking then, just in terms of a roadmap, we obviously spoke about Arizona. We've got some rough timelines on that. At Idaho, do you have anything in mind, maybe going into? I don't know, the end of the first half of this year, so looking ahead the next 6 months, where you'd like to see, or what objectives you'd like to have achieved with Idaho?
So we'll need to blast, which means we'll need an explosives license. One of our people in Arizona has a license, which is good federally, but he has to be present when they're blasting in Arizona. When blasting stops in Arizona, we'll see if we can get him up to Idaho to supervise the blasting there. In the interim, we've had another person apply for a blasting license for Idaho. So first off blasting, then the weather has to cooperate.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Peter Clausi, the VP of Capital Markets and Director of Silver Bullet Mines.
Thank you for hosting us. I hope to come back and be able to give you some solid answers next time.
I look forward to it, Peter. Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.